Hello. Today we discussing Parsha Acharei Kedoshim, Acharei Mot Kedoshim. It's a very important Parsha, and the reason why I'm saying that is this is actually the Parsha we read on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And why that is the case will become clear when I start explaining what the Parsha is all about. It starts from a very clear statement that Hashem was talking to Moshe and asking him to tell Aaron, after passing of Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, which was a tragedy which we discussed previously in the Parsha, when they passed away because they brought an unauthorized incense into the Holy of Holies, and they immediately died. Their souls basically flew away to Hashem. There are many explanations to what happened in there, and we discussed it before. So this is not an issue of today. However, Torah gives us an exact timing, and the reason why, because here it starts explaining all the rules of service and purification for the Kahanim. And it basically tells them, you see what happened to your sons, to Nadav, tells Aaron and all the Kahanim. You see what happened to Nadav and Avihu because they didn't follow exactly the rules which they were told. They took some kind of action which was their own decision and deviated from the rules of the engagement, so to speak, and the consequence was very, very tragic. Why? Because the power handled by Kohen Gadol every day, and particularly on the Day of Atonement, is huge. It's huge spiritual power. It's like working with nuclear power with your bare hands. And you must follow very strict rules, otherwise you will not come out alive. And we will come to that in a few seconds in terms of, it's a well-known factor, as a matter of fact, now is a good time as well, that during the time of the Second Temple, it's known when the Kohen Gadol wasn't selected exactly as per the righteous rules, and sometimes the selection was a result of a bribery, and I don't know why they wanted this position so badly, except kavod, respect. But anyway, it's well known that during the time of the Second Temple, they were tying up a rope to the Kohen Gadol. So in case he goes into the Holy of Holies and never comes out, at least they can pull out the body, because nobody else can go into the Holy of Holies. And that brings us exactly to the rules of what Kohen Gadol should or should not do. And Hashem tells Moshe that Kohen Gadol can go inside Holy of Holies only once a year on Yom Kippur. He should wear his just ordinary Kahanim suit, which is the white linen suit, not their wonderful regalia, the 8-piece suit, which is normally signifies the Kohen Gadol in the outside of the temple, outside of the Holy of Holies, when he conducts all the other services except going into the Holy of Holies. However, so Hashem tells him that he can go there only once a year. Now he must light special scepter with special incense, which is clearly defined and specified, and it's very highly purified incense where the purest oil is re-grinded again, and the incense is prepared as per the exact recipe and rules. And then when he lights that scepter with the incense, smoke comes out, and Hashem can appear in a cloud of that smoke, and only then Kohen Gadol can basically communicate with Hashem. on Yom Kippur and asking for atonement and forgiveness. Now, the service commences in the beginning, the service commences from Kohen Gadol conducting the personal sacrifice. So he sacrifices a bull, which he brings from his own funds. He buys it privately, not the temple funds. And this is a special Kohen Gadol sacrifice where he is asking for atonement and forgiveness to the whole family, to himself and the whole family, his immediate family, and all the Kahanim. And then he conducts all the other services associated with Yom Kippur during that day. And during the course of the day, he actually goes in, every time he changes his clothes, he must go into a mikvah. And because the rules are so strict, he actually changes his clothes 5 times during the Yom Kippur, and he goes into the mikvah 5 times. Every time on the in and out of the Holy of Holies only, where he goes only once, but then during the course of the day, he changes actually 5 times. The most dramatic ceremony conducted on Yom Kippur in those days as well is the scapegoat ceremony, where they draw lots. They bring 2 goats, absolutely wonderfully looking goats, the best of the best, and they must look very much so the same, very, very similar to each other. And then Kohen Gadol basically there are 2 pieces of paper, where on one written to Hashem, and on the other one is written Azazel. Azazel is the negative, the evil inclination basically, or the mountain from which eventually that goat will be thrown and killed. Nevertheless, this is what takes place. Kohen Gadol draws the lot, and the one which is written to Hashem, and that goat which gets that lot is sacrificed in the temple as a normal sacrifice, and he serves as an atonement for all people of Israel, for the sins of people of Israel. The Azazel is the other goat. And what happens to him actually, before this goat is departed from the temple, a red string is tied up to his horns, and a piece of that red string is cut off. And then a special man, which has been preselected, takes that goat, takes the goat to the desert, and brings it to the Azazel mountain, or the peak, or the valley, wherever it's very steep mountain. And from there, that goat is thrown down the mountain, and obviously is killed. Now, I missed one important part deliberately. So what this is all about? Before Azazel goes, Kohen Gadol puts his hands on it and loads into it spiritually all the sins of Jewish people. This is like passing all the bad thoughts, bad ideas, bad statements, bad deeds, all everything what happened to the children of Israel during the year, negative, is put onto this Azazel. It's like loading the sacrificial, the scapegoat, loading it with the sins of people of Israel. It's a very dramatic service. And then what happens is that Azazel goat takes all Jewish sins away from the people, so that they are offloaded. They are no longer burdened with their sins, with their bad deeds. The question comes up, yeah, but on daily basis, people, whenever they sin, whenever something bad happens, they come over and bring sacrifices to the temple on daily basis. You know, we know about the sin sacrifice, the burnt offering. We know there are all kind of sacrifices. So what's the difference here? Now, apparently, on Yom Kippur there is the jewel service. What it is first of all, there is first there is the kapara, atonement. This is the normal atonement, and this is done through the sacrifice of the goat, which is going to God. But then there is the purification, and the purification, the tahara, and this is what Azazel, this is the purpose that Azazel serves, to purify Jewish people and to take all their sins away. The description of Yom Kippur service is very detailed because it's absolutely critical so that all the rules are followed precisely. Then the Parsha switches to description of all sorts of rules and laws. Laws of sexual behavior, prohibits the incest, the sexual misbehavior in terms of homosexuality, incest, all kind of incest, whether it's brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles with their nephews, nieces, etc. I'm not going to discuss here right now all the possible variations of what incest can be. One interesting point, which is a well-known factor, is that, for instance, here Torah clearly says one cannot marry two sisters at the same time, where we know very well Yaakov was married to two sisters, Leah and Rachel, at the same time. Yes, that was allowed prior to receiving the Torah, prior to this moment as well. And now God basically tells Jewish people, he lays down the rules, the laws, and tells them that what you were doing before, you are no longer allowed to do anymore. We will come to that, the reason why this is happening, we will discuss later on in a few minutes. Then, you know, the other aspect, it tells, for instance, that prohibition to conduct sacrifices outside the temple. Now, since the Mishkan is here, and this is the first temple, and then there will be the big first temple, because Mishkan is just a portable desert kind of arrangement. The first temple, then there will be a second temple, and during the existence of the temple, people were not allowed to conduct sacrifices anywhere outside the temple. That's the law. Where we know very well that, you know, Abraham could build a Mizbeach anywhere he felt important, or Yitzchak or Yaakov were building the sacrificial table, the Mizbeach, and conducting sacrifices and praying to God wherever it is, wherever they stood. Now, no longer allowed. Now, Torah clearly says that Jews cannot consume blood. It's totally prohibited to Jewish people to consume blood in any kind of form. And even if we kill a non-kosher animal, for instance, while hunting or whatever, the animal's blood must be covered with soil or anything so that it doesn't get basically offended. Why? Because Torah clearly states, and you will find it in Midrashic writings as well, that nefesh, our lowest part of our neshama, and every animal neshama, is actually in the blood. This is where the neshama is, and that's why we cannot consume any other animal's blood. Or anybody's blood. We cannot consume blood, full stop. Right? And that's part of the kosher laws, as a matter of fact. In every aspect of life is covered in this parsha, and it talks about respect to and service to parents, and how we should behave with our parents. It talks about importance of keeping Shabbat, importance of leaving harvest what falls while you harvest your crop. For instance, if something falls off, you leave it for the poor people. It talks about importance of not mixing different materials in your clothes, right? Or plants, not planting different plants in the same field. It talks about importance of not crossbreeding different kind of animals with each other. It discusses and in depth the importance of honest and decent behavior of the judges, so that the justice is delivered properly. And it clearly defines, for instance, the judge cannot favor a poor person just because he's a poor person, or favor a rich person because you cannot really represent a rich and important person in bad aspect. No. Everything must be done, and the law, the verdicts of the judges are deduced only on the basis of the law and the evidence which has been provided. That's it. It has got nothing to do with who the person is. The Parsha clearly tells us about the moral and ethical aspects of conducting business, that you must pay your workers on the right time. You cannot withhold their payment. You must keep your clients, your customers, give them fair deals. You do not cheat on your clients. It's totally not allowed. As a matter of fact, it's a huge sin, and some other time when we have got more time, we can probably discuss that as a special aspect of it, because if you cheated for many years on your clients, and then eventually you starting to realize that one day you will be punished for it, it's very difficult to ask for the client's forgiveness, because there are so many of them, and how you will find that some of them may be dead, and so do not, whatever you do, if you're conducting business, do not cheat on your clients. Very difficult sin to atone. It clearly says, for instance, that do not put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, and do not curse a deaf person because he cannot hear, and the blind person cannot see the stumbling block. What does it mean? It means that you don't offer shares which will fall down in their value to somebody who has got no idea to buy them, just because you want to get rid of them and to minimize your losses and pass them on to this poor guy who has got no idea. That's not on, right? And the same thing applies to weights. For instance, you cannot keep, even in the house, incorrect weights. What it basically implies is all the rules of life, of how to conduct yourself with each other and with Hashem on daily basis. Torah is clearly stating all over the place that all humans are made in image of God. But Hashem clearly states in this parsha to Jewish people, I want you to be holy, for I am holy. What does it mean? It means that the expectations from us Jews are somewhat higher. I'm not saying we are superior or inferior to anybody else. No. I'm not saying that we are better or worse than anybody else. No. What I am saying is that our Father, our teacher, God, has got simply higher expectations of us. It's exactly the same as a teacher in school, in the classroom. There are two pupils. One is excellent. God gave him excellent intellectual capabilities. He absorbs all material 100% every time, no problems at all. And there is somebody else, poor guy on the back of the classroom, which is not so gifted. Well, it happens, not so gifted. So whom do you think the teacher will have higher expectations? Of course, from the pupil who easily knows, accepts the material, absorbs it, and knows it immediately how to handle it. So this is why exactly the same thing. There are higher expectations of us Jews in terms of understanding spiritual world and handling the spiritual world and providing the knowledge of spiritual world to the other people. It's in order to understand this parsha is the beginning of the process of changing the way Hashem communicates with people in general and Jews specifically. Why? Because, look, in few chapters, in few pasukim in there in Torah, we suddenly got just about every rule of life, all laws, all halacha, everything, including Yom Kippur, including atonement. This is like, everything is in there. Why? What is the purpose? Because Hashem simply wants to tell us, I am changing the way I communicate with you guys now. Why? Because now you have got the Mishkan, now you became a nation, now you are on the way to the Holy Land, which I am going to give you, and there is a lot more in front in your history. So let's look at it. Have a look. The initial transmission between Hashem and Abraham and Isaac and Yaakov was one-to-one. They were either, talking to God or God talking to them in their sleep, in their dreams, sometimes when they were awake, sometimes when they were passing out, basically, or asleep. But it was one-on-one communication. Then Moshe was the one and only prophet which could face Hashem, basically, was absolutely conscious and was discussing issues with Hashem, so to speak, face to face. He never saw his face, but anywhere he was not knocked out. So he is the one and only who could do that. But it was becoming absolutely clear that a set of rules must be set in place and a set of ways to communicate with Hashem on a more consistent basis must be set up. And that's why Kohen Gadol and all Kahanim and the whole priesthood system came about. Because Moshe wasn't forever, as we know. Eventually Moshe passes away. Right? So some kind of a system must replace. It's exactly the same as growth of any business, from small corner shop to a big department store, where they already have got a number of managers and system manuals and instruction manuals of how to conduct the business. This is the same logic. So here the Kahanim are given the rules and laws of how to conduct their services and their purification, as well as the people are given the laws of how to behave with each other and with Hashem and with the Kohanim, and what is allowed and what is not allowed. It's the same as, there is this Russian poem, when a little boy came over to father and asked him a simple question. Father, tell me what is good and what is bad, and how do you define this? And this is exactly what Hashem is doing here. He defines for us and for all people, as well as for Jewish people, he defines what are his expectations of us. And then, on top of this, eventually, the system builds and builds and builds, and all the rules, the halacha is only the laws. But then there is the ways of behavior, which is described in Musar, described in Pirkei Avot, in very simple terms, but very important aspects of how we conduct our life. And it's not only what we do and how we do it, but what kind of people we become as a consequence of this. That's very important, and Musar eventually addresses that problem. So Right now, in this parsha, yes, we're discussing the rules for Kahanim and for the people as well. But later on, when the second temple is destroyed, and all life of Jewish people is ruined because their life revolved for centuries around the first temple and the second temple. In Babylon, they were in exile in between the temples, but nevertheless, all their aspirations, all their psychology, understanding of the world, their relationships with each other, their atonement, their spiritual well-being was attached to the temple. Now, when the second temple was gone, that was a total tragedy, a disaster. And this is when Rebbe Akiva and other sages came up with the concept of rabbinical Judaism, where Hashem from now on is not communicating with his people through the Kahanim, but Hashem is in every heart of every Jew. And every Jew can talk to Hashem whenever he is prepared to do that. And this is a fundamental difference, because it means that from out of devastating tragedy, the sages created a religious and social order of a totally different kind, where people became the priests. We Jews became the nation of the priests. And we became, as a consequence, a holy nation. But that will happen in the future, later on. But in these two parshas, Acharei Kedoshim, Hashem lays the foundation of that process of developing us into the nation of the priests and the holy nation. Because he said, I want you to be holy, for I am holy. Hashem tells us, his people, not only to keep the law, but we must study it day and night, and teach our children day and night. And when we sit at home and we walk on the road, on the way, and when we lie down and we wake up, we must remember to study the law and to remember Hashem. God wants the law to be engraved in his people's minds and hearts all the time. And with that only, when this is done, when this exists, then only there can be justice and freedom and coexistence of all people. And this is what Hashem wants us to do. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I delivered my message. Have a nice day, evening or morning, whatever it is, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.